Nothing good lasts forever. I gave you a 3 weeks vacation from Sam Vaknin. But it's over. I'm back with this video. And today we are going to discuss what I call the system of residuals. Can two narcissists inhabit the same body? Now this sounds a bit like The Exorcist or demon possession or multiple personality disorder, known today as dissociative identity disorder. But actually, it's none of the above. I'm going to discuss the loaded question: can a narcissist be both overt and covert at the same time? And when this rare condition happens, what does it mean? How do we identify such a narcissist? And what can we do about it? And what can the narcissist do about it? Is there any way out? To be one kind of narcissist is bad enough. To be two kinds of narcissists in the same body at the same time, this simultaneity or synchronicity, is a horror show. It's indeed a form of possession. It calls for exorcism sanctioned by the Catholic Church. But I can't have this on my show. I'm a Jew, so I'm going to discuss psychology instead, a profession largely invented and propagated by Jews throughout modern history. Okay, anti-Semitism aside, let's delve right into the topic of the video. The problem starts with the concept of the unitary self. At some point, modern psychology had taken a detour. Various scholars had come up with concepts such as self, ego, personality, individual. And these concepts had implied that we are all atoms. We are kind of self-sufficient, self-contained, solipsistic universes. We do pass each other in the night, honking our horns, our foghorns, like two ships, but otherwise we are totally separate. We can be studied in isolation in laboratories. The context in which we are embedded, for example, the social context, is secondary. What matters are internal processes. This is where psychology started to become delusional or divorced from reality. If I had to diagnose current psychology, I would say that it has an impaired reality testing. And why would I say that? Because there's no such thing as individual. Probably there's no such thing as a self. Definitely there's no such thing as a personality. All these concepts are very misleading. We are formed, we become, in a process which is lifelong, as Erickson had noted. And this process involves other people all the time. We are relational outcomes. We emerge, we coalesce through interactions with other people. We are the sum total of our object relations, starting with mommy and ending in the grave. As we go through life, as we find ourselves enmeshed with other people, we love, we hate, we fight, we withdraw. Yes, withdrawal is also a form of reaction to people. As we interact socially, even if we are schizoid, even if we are avoidant, we still interact. We're still forced to interact socially. All these environments, phenomena, other people, they form us, they shape us, they make us who we are. Now, this observation is not new, of course. It has been proposed by various object relation theorists in the 1960s. But since then, psychology had taken an experimental turn. Psychologists, when they grow up, want to be scientists. It's a form of vanity. It's a form of grandiosity. Psychologists are not happy with being psychologists. They want to be physicists. They want to belong to medicine. They want to become a part of the sciences. And so what psychologists had done in the past several decades is they began to place emphasis on laboratory experiments, on studying animals as proxies for people, etc., etc. This was a very wrong turn. And so we ended up with a psychology that speaks very little to our common experiences. We had become alienated from psychology, estranged from psychology. We feel as if psychology has nothing to offer us. And you know what the truth is? That psychology has very little to offer us, which is why people gravitate to con artists, coaches, and other forms of low life. So it all started with this error, with this primordial sin of the unitary self. Gradually, over the past few decades, there have been rebel movements, for example, the internal family system and others. And these rebels, intellectuals, high-powered intellectuals and scholars, suggested another concept, a substitute for the unitary self. It's a form of operating system, internal operating system, a CPU. And this internal operating system determines which of several self-state emerges at any given time. Let's revert. Let's go back one step. The new approach in psychology, these new schools, or relatively new schools, suggest that we actually don't have a self. What we have instead is a family, a congregation, a parish, a group, a collective of sub-personalities, self-states, or what I call pseudo-identities. Now, these self-states are indeed like a family in the sense that there are internal dynamics between them. They also share a lot of information with each other, so they are only partially dissociative. The dissociation wall is permeable. What one self-state learns, the others share mostly, not entirely, but mostly. So there is a common database of experiences which renders identity cohesive, coherent, and continuous. We have these multiple self-states. They inhabit an internal space. This internal space has a shared database of common memories. These common memories give rise to a fluid but stable identity core, and this identity core in turn arranges the memories in meaningful ways. The identity core serves as an organizing principle, an explanatory principle. And there's an operating system, there's an overriding guiding principle, so to speak, which determines which of the self-states emerges at any given point. And how does this determination take place? How does the operating system decide which self-state emerges at any given minute? It evaluates internal and external information. Now, this information is generated and provided by internal and external environments. So the operating system monitors environments, external environments and internal environments all the time. And then it renders its verdict. It makes a decision. Right now, self-state number 3, the psychopathic self-state, should emerge. Right now, self-state number 1, the narcissistic self-state, should take over. And right now, self-state number 7, the codependent self-state or the dependent self-state, should kind of pervade the personality. So self-states alternate, sometimes dizzyingly and kaleidoscopically alternate among each other. Now, in the majority of cases, there are stable self-states which persist for weeks, or months, years, sometimes decades. But when people are mentally ill, for example, in borderline personality disorder, in narcissistic personality disorder, the self-states change very often. And they change among themselves. They take over. They hand the baton. They hand in a relay, kind of. They do this because the internal and external stimuli, the internal and external information, usually overwhelms the mentally ill person and creates dysregulation. To cope with the threat of dysregulation, the operating system pushes out another self state which is better capable and better able to cope with dysregulation.